right? So hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today to discuss the impact of marine debris on our oceans. I'd like to start by introducing our presenter for this evening. We have Madhuli Karmalkar with us. Madhuli was born and raised in Pune, where she completed her bachelor's degree. Now she also holds a master's graduate degree from the University of Tasmania in marine sciences. Her research primarily focused on the effects of rising ocean temperature and plastic pollution on seabird diet. On her return from Australia, diving presented itself quite naturally to her. It provided her with the perfect platform, given her inclination towards improving ocean health, as well as spreading awareness amongst citizens regarding marine conservation. Now, moderators for today are myself, Anisha, Kumar, and we have Sinjini, Chanda, who will be hosting us on Instagram Live. A little bit about myself. I am a PADI staff instructor with close to 9 years of teaching experience. I have been instructing in regions such as Thailand, Indonesia, the Caribbean islands, and a few different locations in India as well. I'm personally very passionate about higher education and devote a bulk of my time towards working with higher education and training up new instructors across these regions. Prior to being bitten by the diving bug, I worked in a more rigid corporate structure out of Mumbai. I was working with entertainment marketing for close to 5 years. A little bit about our other moderator for today, Sinjini. So Sinjini was born and raised in Calcutta, and like all Bengalis, she does love her fish, just not on her plate. She's a former journalist and she moved cities and changed careers to become a dive pro in 2007. Now she's working as an instructor with Scuba Evolution India, and she loves teaching children as well as training up new dive professionals. Now, before we get started, just a few points that I'd like to go over with all of you. I would request all of you, I know all of you do already have your audio off, but I would request you to keep it turned off for the duration of today's discussion. We will be following an interview format for today's discussion, but we will open up for questions in the last 15 minutes. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to post them in the comment section below. And in case, due to a paucity of time, we're unable to get to those questions or answer those questions, we will be sure to reach out to you with a detailed response. So with that, we'll jump right in. Madhuli, thank you so much for being with us today. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Let me get the ball rolling with our first question.
Sure.
So what is marine debris and how does marine debris affect our aquatic life?
Well, thank you for the introduction, first of all. That was wonderful. I'll just share my screen to be better able to explain this. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, can you see the presenter, like PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Just a second. Right, now let's dive right into understanding what marine debris are and how they affect our aquatic life. So marine debris, or more simply marine litter, is human-created waste that is deliberately or accidentally released into the sea. It ranges greatly in size from smaller plastic particles called microplastics, which are essentially almost invisible to the naked eye, to large vessels, construction debris, household appliances, basically anything you can think of that can damage sensitive habitats. These debris enter the ocean in many ways, but but two major pathways have been identified by researchers, which is land-based and ocean-based. Out of all the marine debris that are entering the ocean, it is estimated that up to 80% of the pollution is happening from land-based sources, and the remaining 20 is from ocean-based sources like maritime shipping traffic or oil rig waste. Now, out of all the marine debris that are in the ocean at the moment, around 80% of them are made from plastic. Plastics are synthetic products which are mainly derived from crude oil or coal. So therefore, you can understand that they are essentially products of the fossil fuel industry. Since plastics are synthetic, they are non-biodegradable in nature, meaning that they take millions of years to degrade. And because of this, they can keep accumulating in our environment once they enter into it. Synthetic plastics are very cheap to produce and offer endless uses. And because of these characteristics, the production of plastic has increased exponentially over the past few decades. And as the production of plastic has increased, so has the plastic footprint of most of the individuals on our planet. And when I mean plastic footprint, it is basically the amount of plastic that you might be using or might be producing as a result of your consumerism. And you can imagine that the more plastic we use, the more waste we will end up also producing, right? So just to give you some figures, we as humans are producing around 400 million tons of plastic each and every year. And out of those 400 million tons, 8 million tons is ending up in the ocean as waste. And like I said before, plastics are a product of the fossil fuel industry. So it's not just the waste that is entering the environment, which is the issue. It is also the production and the release of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere as a result of producing these plastic products. So the larger our plastic footprint, the larger our carbon footprint is going to be as well. And carbon footprint is nothing but the amount of greenhouse gases that are released into the atmosphere as a result of your actions. And it also can be calculated for an organization and also for a country. So now that we know marine debris are a foreign object into our environment, it is bound to have negative impacts on the biodiversity that is living in our oceans. So marine debris can have three major impacts on our aquatic life. So let's see this infographic to better understand it. On the left, you can see the most commonly found kinds of marine debris in our ocean. And on the right, you can see how they might be entering our marine environment. So once they enter our marine environment, the first and the most primary way in which plastic affects marine creatures is through ingestion. And ingestion means directly eating the plastic while they are foraging for their natural prey. So you can see over here, this seabird has eaten so much plastic that it has essentially clogged up its digestive tract and has led to its imminent death. Similarly, here, this turtle is trying to eat a plastic bag because it is probably mistaking it for a jellyfish, which is its primary prey. And I'm sure you guys have seen this very famous photo of a turtle with a straw stuck in its nostril. So this might not be direct ingestion, but it is clogging its respiratory tract. The next way in which plastic can affect marine life is through entanglement in fishing gear. So a lot of our marine debris that are present at the moment in the ocean consists of lost and purposefully discarded fishing gear. So what happens is that once larger marine creatures, mainly air-breathing mammals, when they get entangled in these fishing gear, their mobility is restricted. So they can either die because they're not able to breathe or something like that. And this affects a range of animals, right from turtles, seals, terrapins, to even larger marine mammals, which is like a whale. So you can see here in this photo, divers are trying to remove a large piece of fishing gear from its tail fluke. You might think that these instances might be very few and not many creatures are getting affected by this. In fact, ingestion and entanglement is killing approximately 1 million seabirds and 100,000 different marine species annually. So these issues are actually affecting their population densities, meaning that it is reducing their population to a certain extent that they are endangered and they are almost becoming extinct. The third way in which marine plastic can affect our aquatic life is an indirect way. It is through the action of the plastic additive chemicals. So plastic additive chemicals are basically chemical compounds that have been added to the basic polymer of plastic, so the main building block of plastic, to make it more durable or to make it more flexible. So what happens is that once it enters the environment or even once it's ingested by an animal, the plastic additive chemicals tend to leach out and become available to the environment and the animals. And what happens is that it gets absorbed into the bloodstream and it can affect daily like hormonal processes, growth, and reproductive success, ultimately leading to effects on the population densities of those particular species that are being, exposed to the chemical additives. So yeah, these are the three major ways in which plastic is affecting our marine life, among many others.
All right, thank you. So guys, for those of you who've just joined in, just to let you know, we are following an interview format for the first 30 odd minutes of today's discussion, but we are open to taking questions after that. So if any questions do come to mind, please do post them in the comments below. So we'll be looking at that towards the end of today's discussion. With that, I'll move on to my next question. So Madhuli, how bad is this problem of marine debris pollution? And also, how do you see this quite specific to our local environment, which is Goa?
Well, how bad the problem is, well, I can only explain it in a way that today there is no place on earth that is immune to this issue of plastic pollution. Our trash has been found in every single corner of the ocean, right from the most remote shorelines to the ice in the polar regions, and even in the deepest part of the sea, like the Mariana Trench. And this has not happened over a long period of time, like over hundreds of years or something like that. It has happened just since the 1950s when the mass production of plastic actually started. So you can imagine it's just 70 years ago. And when you think about the Earth's age, 70 years is just a blink of an eye. So production of plastic has increased exponentially from just 2.3 million tons in the 1950s to around 450 million tons by 2020, like in 2020. And it is expected to almost double by 2050. So you can imagine if the production of plastic itself is going to double by 2050, the amount of plastic waste that will be generated is just unimaginable, right? And the problem of marine debris is not just a localized issue. Like it's not just because of one single country. It is affecting the globe entirely. So once marine debris enter the ocean, it can be very challenging to understand where it might be coming from or where it might go. So for example, if a plastic piece is entering the ocean in one part of the world, it can travel to other parts of the world as a result of the movement of currents. And they usually end up in these areas called ocean gyres, where the current activity is pretty weak. So in this photo, you can see that there are 5 ocean gyres that have been identified around the world. And the blue line that runs through the middle is the equator. So plastic is brought to these ocean gyres with the help of stronger currents. And since a lot of plastic is getting accumulated, large garbage patches are formed. So I'm sure you've heard of this Great Pacific Garbage Patch, right? It's found in the Great Pacific Gyre over here. And how these garbage patches can be, bad is because the marine life that is living over there has an increased probability of actually getting entangled in it or either ingesting it. So, and I have an actually very cool, not cool, but very interesting example that I myself experienced. So when I was doing my fieldwork in Australia, I was working in the Bass Strait. So over here, can you see my cursor, Anisha?
Yes. Yes.
So the Bass Strait is located between mainland Australia and the island state of Tasmania. So it's this little strip of sea over here. It's it's one of the most southernmost points in the continent and even in the southern hemisphere. So while I was on the beach over there, I found this plastic tube which had Japanese or Korean writing on it. I'm not really sure of the language, but you can imagine that it was produced in the northern hemisphere somewhere around here, and it went into the ocean as trash and traveled all the way till the southern hemisphere to one of the most remotest areas on earth. So that's how big the problem is nowadays. And the reason why the problem has reached this scale is due to the broader problem of waste management and a general lack of awareness among citizens. So this is the same issue in Goa as well, since you asked me about our local environment. So let's see these few photographs. Being a very popular tourist destination, plastic pollution has become a really big problem for the state. And certain issues or certain points are particularly adding to the problem. So first being the careless littering of plastic due to general lack of awareness. So over here you can see just plastic being thrown into the waterways or on the side of the road. And there is general, like there's no reinforcement as well. So there are no penalties or something like that. Next, there is a lack of organized rag pickers. So whatever waste you might be segregating and putting up for municipal collection, there's not enough people to segregate the recyclable waste. So what happens is that most waste, whether it's recyclable or not, is ending up in the municipal dumping grounds. And whatever, like how many ever rag pickers are available, they are only segregating the recyclable and the non-contaminated waste. Everything else is just going to the dumping grounds. And this increases the probability of waste entering the waterways or even like on the street because of heavy rains or heavy wind. Another thing that is majorly adding to this issue is the large-scale development of housing and commercial spaces. Now, if people are going to come and live there and there's going to be human activity, there's of course going to be a lot of waste generation. However, there is not a corresponding increase in the infrastructure that can cater to such waste. So the waste is being generated, but it has nowhere to go. Similar issue is in most village areas. So there is lack of garbage management systems. And what happens is that citizens just either burn their waste or they are flinging them along the roadsides or in open spaces. Another thing which is very unique to coastal areas in all around India, in fact, is plastic gets caught up in the fishing nets of fishermen. And when they bring back their catch onto the beach to count or whatever it is, they just remove the plastic that is caught and put it back onto the beach. And because of the tidal action, there is a high probability that that waste is again going to be sucked into the sea. So you can see how there's this very vicious cycle that is not being broken anywhere. So in this photograph, you can also see people have had organized a beach cleanup, and the amount of plastic bag that they have actually filled. And there's much more waste, which I'm pretty sure is there on the beach still. So yeah, to reduce the extent of this problem, there is an urgent need for comprehensive waste management policy, not just in Goa, but in almost every state in India.
Thank you for that, Madhuli. That was extremely insightful and informative.
Thank you.
And on that note, let's do our first poll for the evening, just to make sure everyone is up and about and awake.
Yeah, sure.
So for all our participants, you will see a question with 4 options in front of you on your screen. So what are the different ways in which plastic debris affects marine creatures? Wow, before I could finish reading the question, I already have multiple answers.
Cool.
So I'll give you guys a few seconds to input your answers, and then we'll talk a little bit about this. All right, guys. So as I can see, all of you have answered all of the above. So Madhuli, would you say that is the correct answer to this question?
Yes, it is.
Fantastic. So everyone's doing a great job. And
everyone's
mostly usually if everyone's getting the answers correct.
Perfect.
All right. So with that, we will now move on to our next question.
Yeah.
So where do you see divers or dive businesses really sort of coming in towards contributing towards a solution for this problem of marine debris or plastic pollution?
That's a really good question. Because in my opinion, divers are at the forefront of underwater conservation. They can document the state of our coral reefs, the state of marine debris pollution, and they are fantastic advocates for the ocean. And over the past few decades, divers, marine biologists, and beach lovers alike have seen a considerable change in the ocean, in our oceans, right? So there are a number of things that we as divers and dive organizations can do to reduce our impact or to even make a positive one. So one of the first things is, of course, As divers, we can inspire other people to care and spread awareness about the things that are degrading our oceans. Dive professionals in particular can sensitize their customers to the marine plastic pollution by showing them the extent of marine debris on their home reefs, if there are any present, and encouraging them to collect these debris during their dives. As dive organizations in particular can actually organize specialized dives for collecting these debris, which are called dive against debris. And we at SEI actually have this motto that each and every dive is a dive against debris. So we always have a mesh bag, each and every, like our divers have a mesh bag with us, and whatever marine debris that we might spot, we always collect it. We also have specialized dive against debris, which we organize periodically. So Anisha will tell you more about this once we are done with our webinar. The next very important thing that we as divers and dive organizations can do is reduce the use of disposable plastic food packaging and cutlery. In fact, dive operators can make a change from providing food and refreshments to their customers on boats by giving it in reusable or biodegradable packaging instead. So customers will also appreciate your effort to conserve your environment. And you will, of course, end up producing less waste on boats. And even if any kind of waste is produced, we have to be responsible and throw it and dispose off of it in proper bins that are available on our boats. And when I say proper bins, I mean bins with lids on them, because you know that there's a lot of wind on our boats, and it's possible that the waste might just go back into the sea. The next is very unique. It is ditching the masking tape. So for people who are non-divers here, what dive operators do all around the world is that they use masking tape around the tank valve to mark a fresh tank. And what happens is that once that masking tape is removed when the tank is in use, it's possible that it might end up becoming a marine debris. Instead of using masking tape, what you can do is use reusable tank caps, like the one in this photograph. I think they have reused a pipe and they just put it on top of the tank valve. What we at Scuba Evolution India have done is we have reused cycle tire tubes, cycle or even two-wheeler tire tubes. We have cut them up into circles and we tie them around our tank valves. And once the tank is in use, it just hangs around the neck. So here we have done two things. We have stopped using masking tape, and we have also reused a potential waste item, which is the tire tube. So it's pretty cool.
Fantastic. Those are very clear action points for divers and dive businesses. That's great.
Yes.
And guys, with that, we'll jump into our next poll question. Are you ready? There we go. Okay. So what contributes the highest to marine debris? Would you say this is land-based debris or pollution, or ocean-based debris or pollution? So I'll give you guys a few seconds to input your answers here. All right. Okay. So for this, Madhuli, we have 83% who think it is land-based and 17% that have answered ocean-based. So can you tell us what the correct answer is here?
So the correct answer is what people have answered the most. It's land-based sources. Since most of us humans are concentrated on land and we end up producing the waste on land, it is most probable that the waste is going to come from the terrestrial environment. So, yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, great. So my next question to you, Madhuli, is, so we have a bit of a mixed bag in terms of participants and people viewing in today.
Right.
So what are the things that you think a layperson should be aware of that is pertinent to this issue? What can they do to reduce their level of plastic pollution?
Right. So before we can, get to know what we as common people can do during our daily lives to reduce our impact on the earth, we need to understand this one very important very important issue. I've seen this misconception go around a lot. People think that even if we are using plastic, it is all right because it is ultimately going to go and get recycled and not enter the environment.
Right.
However, what people don't understand is that not all plastic is recyclable. So almost 50% of the plastic that you might be using is not recyclable. So anything from plastic cutlery, straws, a bag of chips, thermocol, anything that is lined with aluminum on the inside, these things cannot get recycled, even if they are, made from plastic. And even if recyclable material like, milk cartons are filled with organic material or are wet, they cannot go through the recycling plant. So
Right.
essentially, almost more than 50% of whatever plastic you are using is not recyclable. And even though recycling is all, very much encouraged, only around 9% of the waste that is produced in the world is actually recycled. So even if it's recyclable, only 9% of it is getting recycled. So we're not making the entire use of the power of recycling. So in my opinion, it's just not enough to tackle the huge scale plastic pollution that we are experiencing at present. And hence we need to reduce our plastic footprint, our usage of plastic, and ultimately our carbon footprint if we really, really want to make a positive impact. So now we can get into understanding what things we can adopt in our daily lives so that we can achieve that. The first one is simply say no. So this means that if you are going out and you are given, for example, you're going out into a restaurant and you get a plastic bottle as for drinking, and you can simply say no. You can say that no, we want regular water, because according to the Supreme Court in India, all restaurants are bound to give you regular water and they cannot refuse that. So, or you can do what I do. I just carry my own reusable, metal bottle with me. So there is no chance that I'm going to end up using any kind of plastic bottle to drink my water. So that's one thing. Next is also, this is very important, you have to reduce your usage of plastic heavy material like thermocol and bubble wrap, because these things are not even accepted as municipal waste. So they just end up, staying at your, staying in your storage, or most probably flung around roadsides and just adding to the problem of waste. So I'm sure everyone might have experienced this. Like if you buy something like a TV or a fridge, thermocol is bound to come with that. So if you don't want to, get thermocol into your house, it is possible that you can tell the retailers not to give you packaged thermocol when they are sending their products home. The next is reducing the use of disposable materials like food packaging, cutlery, plastic bags, and making a shift to using more biodegradable and reusable alternatives like coffee cups made from bamboo or paper, of course, metal reusable water bottle, metal straws, and of course, always, always, always have a cloth bag in your backpack, because you never know when you might need to shop or when you might need to buy anything. So always have a resident cloth bag in your backpack. The next,
Fantastic.
yeah. The next is consume local and seasonal products as much as possible. This reduces your pollution that might be incurred as a result of transporting those goods from long distances. And I know that it sounds really fancy to read on labels that, for example, you're buying rice and the label reads that this rice has been grown in the lush and fertile alluvial plains of northern India. And you're sitting in Maharashtra or Goa and then ordering those things. What is happening that there's so much transport, there's so much fuel that is being used up for transporting that rice all the way till here in your own state. And there's also so much plastic packaging that is happening in the background, because that rice needs to be packed and comes to you, and then again you're going to throw that plastic into the dustbin. It just doesn't make sense, right? So you can try and use produce that is grown locally in your own state as near as possible, rather, so that you can reduce your transport miles and also reduce your usage of plastic packaging. The next is try and shop at local grocery stores, because you can actually take your own reusable hard plastic containers or even metal containers, which are very common around Indian households. You can take these to your local kirana wala and you can fill your monthly ration in it. This essentially eliminates your packaging that you will definitely get into your house if you go to larger supermarkets. All their rice, grains, everything comes in plastic packages, right? Instead of that, you can just go to your local grocery store and take your own containers with you. This, in fact, was a very common practice not too long ago, like 50, 60 years ago, in our lifetime itself. And this was before the production of plastic, of course. However, the culture nowadays has become so fast-paced that people just want to pick up the plastic pack and leave and not have to, fall into the hassle of getting their own containers or plastic bags and then bringing it home, cleaning it, for example. They don't want to do that. However, we need to rethink our lifestyle and we need to try and go back to our traditional ways. Actually, calling them traditional ways also is a little funny because, come on, I mean, we did that almost only 50 years ago. So it's not even that far back. So, yeah. The next is we as humans need to limit our meat consumption, especially beef, and try eating more vegetarian and more plant-based diets, because a lot of our land is being used to grow food for the cattle, which is ultimately going to be slaughtered for human consumption. And you would not imagine the amount of water that goes into processing these meats and bringing them to your doorstep. So if you reduce your meat consumption, you're also going to reduce the overall greenhouse gas emissions, you're going to conserve water, and you're also going to reduce your plastic footprint, because there's a lot of background packaging that goes on. Next is, of course, when you go to your grocery store, avoid buying in bulk and only buy what you need. Because if you buy in bulk, it increases your probability of producing waste. And just if you buy what you only need, you will end up producing less waste, of course. The next is very important and is very difficult for people nowadays. It basically avoid your use of fast fashion brands and avoid falling into the lifestyle of use and throw. So most fast fashion brands are using clothes that are making clothes that are made from polycot. Polycot is basically a synthetic and cotton blend. And this synthetic and cotton blend is very cheap to produce, but is non-biodegradable in nature. So if you are in the culture of use and throw in terms of fashion, whatever clothes that you're not using anymore and have dumped into the garbage are just going to lie in the municipal dumping grounds, and they're not going to degrade, and then it's impossible to actually, it's impossible to even recycle them. So instead of using fast fashion, you can in turn buy more responsibly made clothes. For example, from brands that are using fabric that is made from sustainable materials like hemp, bamboo, or even recycled cotton. And many brands are also using dyes that are not harmful to the environment. So you can support such brands and try to, try to make better choices in terms of fashion. You can also choose to reuse and buy from thrift stores, which are selling clothes that have been pre-loved. Pre-loved meaning that they have been owned by someone else before, and now they have been donated to these stores for people to buy. Another plus point of actually shopping at thrift stores is the clothes tend to be considerably less expensive, which I think will appeal to most people. So yeah, you can, and the clothes there are really, really good. So they are in good condition if that's what you're thinking. Like if they're donated clothes, you might think that the quality is not going to be that great. But no, they do go through a quality control check and only good clothes are put on the rack. The next is, of course, use more public transport and refrain from using your personal diesel or petrol vehicle. This will ultimately reduce your greenhouse gas emissions exponentially and will also, give you a better quality of life if you're using more of, cycle and less of your two-wheeler. Yeah. Overall, these things, can help us reduce our carbon emissions and of course our plastic footprint as well. And these practices, in my opinion, are very easy to implement in your daily lives. Like, common people don't need to go very much out of their way to implement at least 2-3 of these things. Like, I'm not saying, start everything right away and all these practices need to be adopted by tomorrow itself. No, it's not possible. Even by me, it is not really possible to always use public transport, for example, or it's not always possible to go to local grocery stores and find loose grains. For example, like when you go to grocery stores, you get this corn or even a lot of sprouts in plastic bags. Like, I'm sure you must have seen this, it's very common. And you don't have any other choice but to buy them because you don't get them loose and you're not able to shop for such material. So I know it is difficult sometimes, but you can start by at least implementing one of these things in your lifestyle. And in my opinion, if people want to really be more responsible and live a sustainable life for our oceans and our earth in general, they need to make these lifestyle changes that will ultimately help in reversing their impact on the earth's natural processes. And of course, climate change as well. This will ensure that the newer generations will also get a chance to experience and see what we are seeing, but in a better and more pristine condition. Yeah, it's all our responsibility, in my opinion.
100%. Thank you for that, Madhuli. You've definitely given us some real plant-based food for thought there. These are practices that are so easy. They are relatively easy to implement, and
Yes.
It goes a long way, and it's something all of us can do, both divers and non-divers alike, or other divers and people who are yet to start diving.
Yes.
So thank you for that. And before we move into our last poll for the evening, just a reminder, guys, if you have any questions about any of the topics that Madhuli has covered today, or anything else that you would like to know about, please do drop us a question in the comments in the chat below, so we can look at that towards the end of the session. And with that, we'll go into our last poll for the evening. So what are the ways to reduce plastic waste? Choose all that apply. Use refillable water bottles, cloth bags and containers, buy local, and using public transportation. All right. So with this, I can see we have people who've answered for all four, Madhuli. So,
Right.
People have said refillable water bottles, cloth bags and containers, local, as well as public transportation.
Right. So there's no right and wrong answer in this question, but the first three options are more, important when it comes to if you want to reduce your plastic waste production. The last one is more centric towards reducing your carbon emissions. So, yeah. But of course, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Go ahead. Yeah.
Great. So with that, we'll move into our next question. So I think this is a question that's on a lot of people's minds these days, right? When we talk about anything in the conservation space or to do with the pollution that we're dealing with. Now, realistically, do you see the problem of plastic pollution as something that can actually be reduced? One where meaningful amends can still be made, given the current extent of the situation?
Yes, I am an optimistic person, and I will never say that we are at a point of no return. It is definitely possible to reduce the amount of waste that is entering. I wouldn't say stop, but at least reduce. And to understand this issue better, we can think of it as an overflowing sink. So the first thing that you would do would, before actually cleaning up the water, would be turning the faucet off, right?
Right.
Similar, so you can think of it in a similar way for plastic pollution, marine plastic pollution as well. So by preventing more plastic debris entering the ocean, we can turn the faucet off and keep this problem from growing. And why I say this is because cleaning marine debris from beaches or underwater or even on surface of the ocean seems very cool and very proactive. But it is a very time consuming job, like given the sheer size of our oceans and the sheer amount of plastic debris that have already entered. So like I told you in the first, when we were discussing what marine debris are, around 8 million tons is entering the ocean every single year. And 8 million tons is just what we know of. I'm sure that number is even higher. So because of these difficulties, what environmentalists and activists are focusing on is to prevent more debris from entering the ocean by making more and more citizens aware of their actions. So for example, like a person might say that, oh, I'm throwing my waste in the trash bin, I am not littering on the street. Of course, this is good. Of course, you're not littering on the street. You're being a good Samaritan. But that person might not know where that waste is going at the end of the day. Is it going to the recycling plant, or is it going to the municipal dumping ground, or how much of that recyclable waste is actually getting recycled? The person doesn't know that. So if we make more people aware of the different kinds of waste, or how recycling is not the the only solution for resolving this issue, I'm sure we can overall reduce the waste production, and of course then ultimately the plastic entering the ocean will also decrease.
Right.
So another thing that is very important is, and we are lucky in fact, being citizens of a democratic country, we have the advantage to make our government and we have influence on the decisions that our government makes. So if more and more people are aware about these kinds of issues, they will demand for better policy decisions. So for example, recently, I'm sure everyone has heard about this. The Indian government passed a law that banned many single-use plastic items. So these kind of wins are because of raising awareness. So if more and more people are aware, I am sure more and more such policies will come about, more stringent regulations will come about, and this will ultimately help us reduce our impact on the earth.
100%, yes. So Madhuli, like you said, awareness is really what is key right now. And, we have great resources available, both for divers as well as non-divers. We have the Paddy Aware Foundation, which is a not-for-profit organization that was initially founded in 1989. So if you see the screen here you have the 10 steps to becoming an eco-warrior. So these are little things that both divers and non-divers alike can do to be better role models, and to make a change really when it comes to issues such as these. Paddy Aware does offer a host of tools as well as courses for both divers and non-divers to educate and facilitate conservation efforts. As Madhuli mentioned earlier, she touched upon the dive against debris that we do. Now, these are activities, dive against debris as well as beach cleanups. These are both activities that are quite regularly organized by Scuba Evolution India in Goa. And if this is something that is interesting for you, please do follow them on social media, so you will receive up-to-date information on when they are planning their next activities. Through the monsoon, of course, we're not doing a whole lot of diving out of Goa, although some my colleagues are staying fairly busy in Pondicherry and spending a lot of time with whale sharks this last week. I'm extremely jealous. But as and when we do have activities out of Goa, please do follow us and please do join us. And with that, that's it for the interview portion of today's webinar. We'd open up for questions from our participants here on Zoom, as well as people viewing in on Facebook or YouTube. So allow me a moment to just look at the questions coming in. Sinjini, do we have any questions from Instagram? All right. I think you might be getting away a little bit easy today, Madhuli.
Oh, no, I would love to answer questions.
Okay, so we don't have any questions at this point of time, but guys, I do urge you to write in should anything come to mind. We would be happy to address any questions that you have in detail. We have a fabulous resource in Madhuli, so please take full advantage. And thank you so much for joining in today. Madhuli, you've done, it's been such a pleasure having you here, and I know you've put in so much work in preparing for this webinar. So
No
thank
worries,
you
no worries.
so
Thank
much.
you for giving me this opportunity.
And a big thank you to the team at SEI. You've troubled Vish, Skandan, and Sinjini heaps over the last couple of weeks in preparation. So thank you guys so much. And with that, we're done then. We can close with that. Thank you
for everyone. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording now. And great job.